advocate for responsible land use and environmental protection policies and actions in Nevada County. Our goal is for Nevada County's future as a thriving community and a strong economy and a healthy environment. No surprises that working to stop the mine checks all those boxes. So again, what I want to say is my name, and today we're here to talk about the project that could be and could have a significant impact on our community. And from the conversation I've heard already, and a lot of you really do understand that, the proposed opening of the Idaho Maryland mine. Mine Watch, which is some things that some of you may already belong to, is sponsored by CEA, and it's a volunteer organization, a community coalition sponsored by us. And we're studying this project and working in concert with a number of other organizations, such as Sierra Club, Wolf Creek Community Alliance, San Juan Taxpayers Association, and the South Yuba River Citizens League, among others. Our goal is to provide fact-based information to the community so we can all make informed choices. And we're always open to fact-checking. Next slide, please. I don't know if my next slide will come. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Slide pusher. What's at stake for our community? Well, a lot, as you probably realize. A company named Rise Gold wants to reopen a gold mine that has been closed for 70 years, reintroducing heavily industrial, highly toxic business into what is now an idyllic rural residential community. It begs the question, who gets rich and what cost to the community? First, let me give you a sense of the project, though I have a feeling you already do have sort of a sense of it. Rise Gold is proposing mining, and it's difficult every time I say this, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 80 years. Our Nevada County supervisors will be the decision makers on this project, and we're projecting a decision as early as later this year in 2022. The first big step was the process of the development of the environmental impact report. But you probably also already know that it was released on January 1st, when we were all in the throes of a big winter storm and power outages. So the county wisely gave the groups that are concerned about it and the people some extra time to comment on it, which is what you do with a environmental impact report. The people get a chance to voice their concerns. And so an extra month was added, and for good reason. The final comment date is April 4th. That means that's when you have to get any comments in by 5 o'clock. And within, and we are the community, my goodness, the community meeting has been moved to March 24th. Theoretically, it's to be at the Rood Center at, I think, as early as 9:30 in the morning. And it's good to be prepared if you're planning on attending to write out any comments. I think it'll be about 2 minutes. The impact report itself is over 1,000 pages. That's about this tall when you look at it, with 83 impacts detected, and 2 of which cannot be mitigated: the aesthetics and the noise. The map, next slide, please.
Don, I think you want to go down a few more slides to about the.
Oh, sorry. I guess I pushed. Okay.
That's where you want, right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're new at this, you can tell. This is the mineral rights area. This is a very, very important map to understand. These areas are directly the impacted directly. There are 2 above sites shown in the middle of this map. The Centennial site near downtown Grass Valley off the Idaho-Maryland road, and the larger Brunswick site at the intersection of East Bennett and Brunswick roads. In addition to that, the darker gray section shows the underground mineral rights and owned by Rise Gold. It covers more than 2,500 acres, extending under the hospital and the senior care facilities near there, underneath the Nevada County Airport on the right-hand side, and all the way up to Cedar Ridge towards the bottom here. Well, up, when I always think of it as up. Basically, Rise owns everything that starts 200 feet below that surface and would allow them to tunnel under those areas, making it quite a large area of potential risk. And unlike the early 1900s, when the mine was actually located well outside the town, today there are 900 parcels immediately on top of the mineral rights, and another 900 just within 1,000 feet of that boundary, for a total of 1,800 properties in the impact zone. There are also 300 private wells over and near the mineral rights. Before moving to the next slide, I'd like to call out one more thing. The Centennial site, which you can see with a big arrow there, is is historically a toxic site that was facing superfine toxic possibilities, a designation, until Rise Gold agreed to clean it up. Unfortunately, the plans just don't stop there, though, with the cleanup. Their intent is to use the site to dump new mine waste, effectively using the site to create piles of engineered rock fill up to 7 stories high. That's a 7-story building we're talking about. At issue here, Don, the next slide, please. At the issue here is the critical question of trust. Because gold mining is, by its very nature, an extremely hazardous business, there are lots of questions. We are a community that has a landscape filled with toxic mine waste. There's a critical question about whether our county and state can provide extensive and proactive compliance oversight over those 80 years when it's needed. The 2014 grand jury found that the county and the state had failed to protect our community from the toxic impacts of gold mining. Are we more prepared today than they were? Beyond that, the mining industry has a long history of doing damage to communities, going bankrupt, and leaving behind inadequate bonds to cover the cost of cleanup. This was, in fact, the case with Rise Gold CEO Ben Mossman's previous company. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. Here, if this project is approved, the impact on Western Nevada County would be significant. And there are 3 areas of key concern, and I will speak to health, quality of life, and economic damage. So let's take a closer look. Health, new slide, please, Don. Health is the first thing, and it's the biggest one, not the biggest one, a big one. But unfortunately, Nevada County already struggles with more than the fair share of health challenges. We rank well below the California average in air quality, lung and heart disease, and depression, and suicide. Gold mining operations bring up several areas of concern. Air quality will be impacted by fumes and fugitive dust from blasting, crushing, transporting, spreading, and compacting mine waste. Mine waste, its water quality and quantity will be put at risk because of the massive dewatering of the underground tunnels. Mine waste itself, rocks will be removed from the mine containing hazardous elements like asbestos and microscopic crystalline silica. And residents nearest the mine workings will hear the industrial operation noise and vibrations from drilling and blasting, impacting their quality of life and inducing stress that could contribute to psychosocial conditions. Taking a closer look at air, diesel exhaust from continuous truck trips, 16 hours a day, mine exhaust with escaped fumes from blasting and processing 24 hours a day, including the use of ammonium nitrate. We know about ammonium nitrate. It's in the news right now on the East Coast, where a big fertilizer plant is ready to blow up, and from all over the world on other times. Fugitive dust from rock crushing, loading, unloading, as they create mountains of engineered fill. Remember that 7 stories high pile on Centennial. The fact of the matter is that our community is already in a seriously compromised position. The 2020 State of the Air report from the American Lung Association gave Nevada County an F. This is probably something you are aware of, for our air quality. And that counted for both high zone days, high ozone days, and particle pollution. And our lung disease rate is twice the average of counties in California. Rise Gold believes that through modern day mining processes, they'll be able to mitigate all of these concerns so that health risks posed by the mine will be less than significant, which is something that the California Environmental Quality Act, there's a whole series. Less than significant is not good enough, though. But we beg to differ. We agree that impact will be significant for this community. In the end, the determination of health risks is made by the independent consultant who is preparing the DEIR itself. And that report hasn't, well, it is finished now, but we do have lots of questions regarding it. The bottom line is that we already have an unhealthy levels, and adding anything more will just make it worse in many people's opinion. I'm going to turn this over to Josie Crawford now, so that she, who is much more of an expert in water than I am, and she's going to, I think, probably ask for the next slide.
I am. Drains our water. Next one. That's it. Thank you, Don. Thanks, Barbara. So I'm Josie Crawford. I work with the Wolf Creek Community Alliance, and Wolf Creek Community Alliance is our mission is to preserve, protect, and restore the Wolf Creek watershed by increasing knowledge, appreciation, stewardship, and access to the creek. So our concern is, of course, Wolf Creek more than anything else. We have lots of concerns privately, but the creek is what we are really focused on protecting. So with that, we know there's going to be a lot of impacts to our water supply, which is a serious concern given the mega drought that we're currently facing. RISE proposes to dewater the abandoned tunnels, which means putting 3.6 million gallons a day of treated wastewater into the South Fork Wolf Creek for 6 months. And after that, they continue to remove 1.2 million gallons of water a day, every day for the next 80 years. So just a little aside, we did a little calculation of what that would mean for our creek, and it would increase the flow in the creek right away up to between 3 and 33 times the amount of water that's currently flowing in that creek. So that could do some serious scouring and damage to the ecosystem in there. And this is a trout stream. It's extremely sensitive, and we'll talk more about that. But so how will it impact the creeks? Rise Gold's proposing to build a complex system for treating and releasing water into a fork of one of our local area's most treasured creeks. This is South Fork Wolf Creek, which flows into Wolf Creek. right in the middle of town, right by the Safeway. Let's see, so they're claiming that the flows are going to be controlled and that water quality will be released to drinking water standards, which really isn't true. It's really secondary drinking water. It's closer to recreational water. They'd have to filter it in much much more complicated system for many more elements in order to make that true drinking water. If what they are releasing could cause pipes to rust and emit a distinct and musty odor. And do you think that won't affect trout and what they eat, the invertebrates? It will. There are questions being asked about aquifer damage and how that might impact an area already ravaged by drought. So RISE is claiming that their operations will only reduce water levels by 1 to 10 feet. And that's within the range of normal, they say. Let's see, but it's not clear what the historical average will be a good predictor for our future. It's not clear that the historical averages are going to be a good predictor. Why? A study by Stanford and the Nature Conservancy suggests that aquifer damage in higher elevation fractured rock can affect water basins at lower altitudes. We also have evidence in our own community that with the San Juan Ridge mine failure that emptied wells and created a cone of depression 300 feet deep. That caused a huge problem. Perhaps the largest area of concern is wells. There are more than 300 private wells over or near the mineral rights area. Residents are deeply concerned that if these wells fail, run dry, or become contaminated, they'll have to find another way to get their water. Rise Gold has promised to offer NID water to 26 homes on Bennett Road, all in a nice straight line, easy to run a pipe to. Let's see. The fate of these remaining wells, the rest of the 300 is uncertain. Groundwater experts tell us that hydrogeology of this area is extremely complicated and the impacts are truly unpredictable because there's fissures. With an 80-year lease, that gives them mineral rights up to 200 feet. So there's, oops, I'm sorry. Lost my place. I knew this would happen. So, oops, I went the wrong way. So
go ahead. I can help out. I think mineral rights up to 200 feet below people's homes. This puts well owners at the risk of costly and lengthy replacement efforts if the worst happens.
I got it here now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of you can remember that the San Juan mine had to shut down in the mid-90s after that mine drained residents' wells, including the community center up there.
The school.
Yeah,
Shady.
That's it. That was over 15 years ago, and the impacts of that failure are still felt among the residents. So next slide. Okay, without question, the people who will be hit hardest by this project are the residents and the businesses in the Brunswick area, significantly impacting the quality of life. We're talking about putting 122,000 square foot heavily industrial processing plant right into the middle of an idyllic rural residential community. Rise Gold is fond of talking about all the measures that they're taking to contain sound levels inside the plant, but there's a lot more outside that they're not talking about. This is still going to be an industrial mining operation. And remember, there's 3 housing projects going in on Brunswick too right now. So in addition to all the traffic and new homes there's going to be new truck traffic, up to 100 round trips per day, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Habitat destruction as natural settings, there's going to be habitat destruction as natural settings get buried beneath the mountains of mine waste and paved industrial area. especially in the Centennial site on Idaho, Maryland, and Centennial. And plenty of noise with constant construction noise for the first 2 or 3 years, and then grading and rock compacting to create engineered fill 7 days a week for 11 years. It's not hard to imagine the sound of backup beeps ringing in your ears and constantly. There's another key concern too. Rise Gold wants to assure us that noise and vibration from drilling and blasting won't be an issue for homeowners or businesses, claiming that the impact won't be significant. And yet, noise and vibration have already been a problem for local residents when Rise was doing initial explorations. Several reports and complaints have been made, including one from a homeowner near Brunswick site who was woken out of a sound sleep many times. One of our county supervisors even visited a home to investigate a complaint and agreed that the level was unacceptable. But shockingly, that level of noise was then found to be within acceptable limits by the letter of the law. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, another concern is power consumption and is related to greenhouse gas emissions. The planned energy consumption alone is a real eye-opener, begging the question about whether it will impact a power grid that's already under strain during heat waves and at further risk with a mega drought impacting hydroelectric power output. The electric use is conservatively estimated to be 42 billion watt hours per year, or gigawatts per hour, which is about 12% of what Nevada County uses in a year. 12% of what we currently use in a year, and 100% of the electricity used by all of Nevada County's businesses combined. The plan calls for significant use of fossil fuels. It's also estimated that their ongoing level of energy consumption would be roughly equivalent to adding 5,000 new homes. This is completely opposite of where Nevada County has decided to go. Now, the Nevada County Environmental Action Plan Energy Action Plan, right, Don?
Yes.
Yeah. Calls for a significant reduction in residential electric use. As it turns out, that plan calls for a reduction of 42 gigawatt hours annually by 2035, the exact same yearly usage as the mine. In other words, the mine would completely erase our planned residential savings. Yet the DEIR says there's no, that it's within, that it doesn't violate any of that. It's really amazing that they come to that conclusion. Rise Gold's big attraction, of course. Next slide, please. Sorry. Economic damage. So Rise Gold's big attraction, of course, is jobs, 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 jobs. But interestingly, there really aren't that many. Of the 312 jobs projected for the mine, it's still not exactly clear how many will be filled with local residents or whether their staffing plans will change after they're up and running. Yes, there'll be some short-term construction income if materials and labor are secured locally, and local spending and taxes from the mine and its employees. But you might be surprised to learn that our county won't actually get any revenue from the gold mining profits. Only the state and federal governments will benefit from corporate taxes on the profits. So what does that leave us with? A toxic, heavily industrial business right in the middle of what is now a long-established community and a significant risk for surrounding business owners and homeowners. We already talked about the risks facing 300 or more well owners in the area, and both costs and delays could be substantial if those wells fail. Home values are another area of significant concern, despite the recent real estate bubble that drove local prices up. Real estate agents tell us that home prices surrounding the mine will drop between 5 and 20%. Even a conservative estimate multiplied by the number of homes affected puts that loss at the tens of millions of dollars. And of course, if home prices drop, so do property taxes. translating into less revenue for the county. We also need to ask ourselves about the possible impacts to existing businesses and tourism too. Local high-tech microcircuit businesses may not be able to operate in the area because of vibration from blasting. And attracting good employees to the area will be more difficult. These are huge questions. And we're pleased to say that our formal requests to the county to commission an independent economic impact report were heard. The county has published a bid for the job, and the report's going to be completed in time, so the supervisors will be able to make decisions with both environmental and economic information on hand. And that's expected out in the next couple of months, I believe. So next slide. Our take on the DEIR. So earlier we mentioned that the draft environmental impact report is out. It lists a total of 83 impacts, including some that are significant and unavoidable. But community experts are seeing major flaws in the analysis, and we're confident that many more impacts will be classified as unavoidable before the final report is complete. So 3 impacts: aesthetic, traffic, and noise are classified as significant and unavoidable. 30 more areas are listed as significant impacts too. And while the report proposes mitigations to offset those, community experts are seeing major flaws in the analysis. And we think that there are going to be many more impacts that will be classified as unavoidable before the final report is complete. Unavoidable describes impacts that cannot be mitigated so that the community would have to accept them if the projects improve. For instance, the section on aesthetics states there will be substantial damage to scenic resources and will degrade the quality of public views. Traffic impacts are called out for Highway 174 on Cedar Ridge at Sutton Way and at the intersection of Idaho Maryland Road and Centennial Drive. The impacts listed for noise are specific to initial project construction, but we have additional concerns about blasting, dumping of mine tailings, and long-term persistent sounds. That's just the tip of the iceberg, though. Significant impacts are found in some 30 more areas. The report outlines proposed mitigations that are intended to offset them, but we've identified major issues across a number of areas, and we believe more impacts are going to be categorized as unavoidable before it's all done. And here are just a few examples, 3 examples. This report would have us believe that the key hydrology impact is limited to just 30 homes on Bennett Road, and it can be easily fixed with a hookup to NID, but the data presented doesn't really support their conclusions. And a more accurate hydrological model is needed to address concerns about another 250 plus wells and other groundwater impacts. And NID is extremely concerned about this also. They're going to be making a lot of comments about it based on the meeting that we attended last week. The section on air impacts lists mitigations for limiting dust, but the asbestos analysis is questionable. And we know of at least one aspect of emissions that's not even addressed. Then there's the section on greenhouse gases, where they acknowledge that they're going to be emitting a huge amount, 9,000 metric tons per year, that would be mitigated by purchasing, sorry about this page turning business, carbon offsets. But if they took into account the additional 4,000 related to cement manufacturing, they'd be well over the 10,000 metric ton significance threshold. Another significant red flag is found with the related cleanup project at the Centennial site, which the report tries to isolate as an independent project, not needing to be addressed in this analysis. But this approach fails in numerous ways. There are numerous other defects in the DEIR that we keep finding more. The bottom line, we think this analysis is a very long way from done. you know, there's another one I know of. There's a plant, a rare plant. It's a Vermontodendron decumbens. It's a beautiful flannel bush, and it's they say their mitigation for destroying parts of the population are to transplant mature shrubs, and these plants are untransplantable. They're untransplantable as 1 gallon horticultural variety plants, or, you know, very difficult to transplant. They wouldn't. So it's just they make these. They say that they can fix everything by just transplanting an untransplantable shrub. That doesn't really pass, in my estimation. So there's millions of things like that. So, you know, if you want to read through it, you might be able to find some of your own. Families, next slide, Don, please. Yeah, we get there. Okay, families, business owners, retirees, and tourists love Nevada County because of its scenic beauty, iconic rivers, quaint downtown areas, world-class recreational opportunities, and laid-back feeling. Now, how will that change if we add more spare the air days, an unsightly processing plant, and have 2 massive engineered fill, grading, and compacting operations running continuously at the edge of town? Next slide, please. So we need to take action. You might be wondering what you can do to help with this effort. Here's a quick list of things you can do. The best resources for learning about the project are the MindWatch website and the county website. That's mindwatchnc.org, or just Google MindWatch, it'll come right up. Let's see. And then if you're inspired to take action, the MindWatch website gives you everything you need to sign the petition, learn how to make comments at supervisors meetings, get a lawn sign, or follow us by email or social media. And then, because MindWatch is a completely volunteer-driven effort, we genuinely appreciate donations to help us pay for the costs involved with research, community outreach, and legal experts. To learn more, you can go to the CEA website, www.mindwatchnc.org. And let's see, we got.
Is it time for questions?
Yeah, I think so. This is time for questions. So yep, that's it. Good.
Thank you so much. It was very educational. And yes, we have time for questions. If everyone who would like to ask a question to raise their hand, and either Barbara or Josie will select you, but we will hopefully answer all questions that arise.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, I'm not deaf. I'm Lynn. Just letting you know.
Okay.
I have a question. I have a
Okay.
couple of questions and one comment.
Okay.
My first question is, I read most of the horrible thing, the what do you call it?
The DEIR,
Yes, that thing.
you read it all. I'm
Well, most of
impressed.
it, most of it,
Wow.
yeah. One thing was not, many things were not clear, but one of the things that stood out to me were the unaddressed air problems. I know they talked about diesel trucks and all of that, but there are a lot of people with asthma in this community, and I'm particularly interested in how that's going to affect those of us with asthma. That's the first question. The second question, of the 274 remaining wells, now I'm not on a well, but what's going to happen with those people? I mean, if they're going to give, what was it, 26 people NID water, if that even happens, what happens to the rest of the people? Their wells just go dry and they die? I mean, you know, that was not addressed. And the third thing, I want to make a comment. I'm a historian and I just finished a 546-page book on a history of the United States, basically, and my family's part in it. And a lot of members of my family were miners. And there's something that you notice when you follow them across the country. And that is that the age to which people live is significantly less in areas where there was mining. And it followed, and whether it was in Shenandoah County, Pennsylvania, or in the coal country, or whether it was right here in Nevada County where my people mined. My ancestors were very long lived, except in the mining areas where most of them didn't live past 70. So
Wow.
I haven't done obviously a scientific study. That'd be interesting, but I won't live long enough to do that. But I just thought that was an interesting observation, and it might be something someone might want to take on. It's not me.
Let me see if I can start with the asthma. We believe that the air quality report is not adequate. And we're working very hard to make that clear to the powers that be. The kind of dust control that is apparent, and if you've read through the report, you can probably see that it seems that it's inadequate. So it is absolutely, in my opinion, and I think many others, it's one of the things that this turns on. I think the air quality issue is one of the biggest ones, truthfully, and it's partly because of our age range in this county too. So we will be working on that. We are hiring an air quality expert. You might have heard Pam Hurd, who is a local respiratory therapist. She's the one that has done some of the early work on it and has called our attention, those of us who are working on all of this, right away. She did at least 2 of our webinars to talk about it, but we are getting somebody, and it's very clear, I think, your assessment, and it would be wonderful if you were able and willing to write a letter on it. I have a feeling you'd make a big impact on our supervisors or planning commissioners or whoever
Are
you
you talking?
choose.
Are
I'm
you
talking
specifically referring to the air quality?
air quality and
Okay.
I think it was asthma and also mining and your mining history, their family's mining history. I
Yeah.
think that's very significant and fascinating. I don't know how that would be an amazing thing
Hey,
to
I'll do
look
it.
into as a maybe not just you, as you said, but certainly something in the public interest to do that, actually. Thanks so
I'll write
much.
a letter. No worries.
will.
I'll do it.
Thank you. Good. I hope I helped a little.
Yeah.
Who's next? Is somebody else? Are we to be, I don't see any, on my screen, I have no hands raised.
How about Martha Turner?
Why
Oh,
don't you
great.
go
Thank
ahead?
you. Thank you. I have 2 questions for one or the other of you, maybe Josie, that was talking about the change in the flow in the Little Wolf Creek. Or we always called it Little Wolf Creek, but that is, what is it, the South Fork?
It's South Fork, yeah.
South Fork. There was a range of 3 to 33 times more water than now. That's a huge difference, and I wondered if you might explain that. And the other one about the water quality being that they say it's going to be drinking water quality, which you've said is false, and that it's more, did you say a recreational water quality? And can you explain a little bit more about those 2 things?
Well, there's different levels of water quality. I guess there's first and second, degree level of drinking water standard, and then there's recreational, which is swimmable and it won't poison you. And I guess what they're going to filter it down to is, or remediate it to secondary standard drinking water, which means it wouldn't be going through your pipes because it could rust your pipes or leave an odor. So so that's it. It's not really drinking water. You wouldn't be having it in your pipes here. And then so water fluctuates in the creek, and with storms, storms could really add a lot more to.
Ever had any rain?
Yeah. So, and then there are different times that they're going to be, in the beginning, they're going to be dewatering, 24/7 for quite a while, and then it'll just be maintenance. So it'll change it, but it's a fairly low flow creek right now. Yeah, it's fairly low flow. I won't get into all the gallons per hour, but it means that it could really down cut the creek. It could scour it, and you know how at Idaho Maryland Road, it's a very deep channel, and the trees are no longer in the floodplain. They're dying. The cottonwoods are all dying on Idaho Maryland Road. Have you ever noticed that? Anyway, it's been down cut from all the water that gets put in there by NID to transport over to the tar ditch. They put water in there 6 months a year to move it around. They take it out of the Yuba River, out of Deer Creek, out of Scotts Flat, and put it into Wolf Creek proper, the big one, and it cuts it down. I'm just saying that this is going to happen at South Fork Wolf Creek as well.
Mhm.
And the very sensitive, there's a lot of, actually we have the highest diversity and greatest abundance of stream macroinvertebrates. Those are the small critters that the trout feed on, the dragonflies and dobson flies and crayfish and things like that are just really important part of the food chain towards the bottom. And it's going to change that whole habitat for them. I'm not going to say that it's going to completely destroy it. We don't know that yet, but it's definitely going to change it and degrade it.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
I can't read the names.
Oh,
of
I'm
the
sorry. There was
small.
Laurel, and then Gail, and I see, and then Steve.
Wendy.
Right.
They can see it.
Well, I'm Laurel. Should I start talking now?
Yes.
Okay. I have a few comments that I'd like to make, and one of the things was you were discussing what the mine said they would do to mitigate some of the issues that came up. Well, I have a real problem with that because I've lived in the county, for over 40 years, and I don't know if anyone remembers. I'm sure we do because it's all along Wolf Creek when Pineless Creek Center was built, and there were so many promises that were made. There was going to be a theater, and there was going to be an ice skating rink, and and definitely no theater. I mean, no ice skating rink or anything. All of the promises, and the developer is presently in jail, and I just don't have any faith at all in any of the promises, and it's frightening to think that that it could happen, and none of the mitigation things would be mitigated. I received in the mail today the card. I mean, not a card. It's a giant. I should go get it. It's the size of a newspaper and practically in hard cardboard. But I thought, well, maybe I will take that little card out and send it to them, saying I hate this. I don't want this mine. But then I heard you mention at the beginning that they could, and I thought about it, that maybe they would use that to say that there's no way. I mean, I've sort of gotten a little bit jaded, and it's hard for me to think that people would do something like that. But I guess they maybe they would. So, but I'm not the only one. There's that, lots. So I was wondering if there was any. I mean, I've written letters to the editor. I was wondering how we could get out to the community not to do that, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who might do that, and it would be terrible to think it was used against us. So I don't know if
Mhm.
that's a Mind Watch or who does that kind of thing.
Uh, Laurel, maybe I can help. I'm not clear either on whether or not we could advertise, in a sense. I suppose we could in the Mind Watch newsletter. I think we did in the early one last year when they sent the last brochure around, to send it back, but send it in an envelope to supervisors,
go.
I believe. And I
Yeah.
think we can do, I think we can do that. Do not send it though, just back with the postage. That won't work. And I've heard tonight that it's illegal. So we shouldn't do that. The other thing I wanted to tell you that I share your concerns about what the future could bring in terms of mitigations, and it is probably one of our biggest worries. We share that with you, and I hope you will write letters. I think it's, and letters to the editor, and whatever way you can to help us fight this and stop it. And because I don't think it's mitigable, and I don't think that we will actually have the wherewithal over these many years to protect the community from the excesses of a industry that is moving into town after all these years.
Could I just add, I'm not sure it's illegal. On the last one, it would have been illegal to send it somewhere else than where, I think we were supposed to send, this is the one that came out last year. I think the return postage was to Rise Gold. So we couldn't have crossed that out and sent it to the supervisors. I
Okay,
think
so
that's what was illegal. You can't change the address. If this goes directly to the supervisors, I haven't looked yet. Can anyone tell me if it goes directly to the supervisors?
I think it goes back to Rise Gold is what I
Yeah,
remember
so
seeing.
Yeah, so you would
It
have
goes
to,
to a post office box in Grass Valley to Rise Gold, PO Box
Okay.
27.
okay, so
What
you
they
cannot change the address and send it to the
what they
super.
did with it last year is whenever they went back, I believe it must have gone to them last year too. They used those, whether they said they don't want the mine or they want the mine, they use it as propaganda and say they received 372 cards back, and that many people are in favor of the mine. So I probably wouldn't send anything anywhere, to tell you the
Just
truth.
send your supervisors a letter
Yes, right.
saying that you are opposed to the mine. And
That's
so we had a little meeting last night, letter writing party, and Martin Webb was talking about, and he made a really good point. He said there's the DEIR. If you respond and send a letter to them, this is the CEQA process, and it's a very narrowly defined thing where you are questioning something in their study and urging them to look further into it, or you're challenging them on some fine point. It is not a place to write how angry you are, that there, any emotional stuff. It's not even going to get to the supervisors. So that's to get them to have to spend more time and get this thing. They'd have to do a new draft of the EIR, and it could stall them, and we're hoping to do that. But if you want, it's very important to let your supervisors know, because this decision comes down to 5 people, and they're probably not going to read the draft EIR. Maybe parts, but they're not scientists, hydrologists, botanists, wildlife experts. So it's important to let them know how you feel, because they are elected officials.
I want to raise my hand.
I have a question.
Okay, so
Okay, you can go.
Gail was next, I think so. Or, yeah, Gail, go ahead. Oh, you have to unmute. Let's see. Can you unmute her, Deb?
I did it.
There you
I'm
did.
Gail. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little slow on this. Anyway, one of the points was that I didn't hear that the people that are most affected, which I would assume would be the 300 or whatever people that live on the property, near the property, have they done anything about making a group for themselves, or are they joining like the groups that we've heard about today? I mean, they should have a lot to say. I would think their words would be heard a little clearer, you know, if I live next door to a noisy place. I would want to get together with some people that live there too and talk about it. But I don't know if that's the case. Is there an internal group of mostly owners in the property?
I can speak to one issue, the well owners, the people who are out in the, not just necessarily the ones right, well, I suppose right around, they, too, but there is a group of well owners that are becoming what you might almost consider an internal group. They have their, you know, their meeting on their own and so on, and acting a little bit, I hope, like a pressure group. Because they have a single issue. But I don't know specifically about the neighborhood around Brunswick. I'm assuming that the well owners also include the people on East Bennett and so on. But lots of people that are even in more outlying districts have become part of the well community, the well coalition, we call it. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So,
I'm glad. to
good
hear that.
point, though.
Yeah. Okay. The other item that occurred to me while we were talking, while we were hearing you talk, both of you, was the idea of a build. It sounded like they're going to make a big building, and a lot of the noise is going to be inside that building, so it wouldn't be a problem. But I've been here since I believe 78. And it seems to me around that time, or they talked a lot at that time about the stamp mills that were in the county, in the city, I guess, and that everybody just knew the stamp, you know, they knew what time they came on, or they came on all day, and everybody was upset about it. But it seems to me they made enough sound that it affected not just a block or two, but like a great big area. So I'm just wondering, I'd be interested in trying to find out a part of this about the noise, because somehow the noise is bothering me. You know, like it would be terrible for something to happen that they said was like under so many decibels, and it really wasn't at all, or that people were getting headaches. Or anyway, I'd like to find out how to look at that part of it.
Well, fine. I think there is an expert. There's, you know, it's multiple things that we have not just the people who are neighbors and friends in the vicinity in Nevada County are amazing people. And there are so many people who have expertise, but we are also finding that we might need some more current expertise or something. So there is that, but you raised the stamping mills, and I heard about that also. And I think maybe historically there might be some material on that. Would you be willing to work on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I could, you know, start at the library or wherever, or someone in your group.
I will certainly pass that along, and maybe send a comment to Mine Watch NC or Mine Concerns at .org or whatever that is.
Okay, I could get that by email.
Yes, email
Okay.
someone about that, because I think that's a very important contribution to the argument.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
How about Anne? Anne, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a question. I'm unclear who paid for the EIR. How was that?
I think Josie or I could answer that. This is
Okay.
Barbara. It's it is the proponent, it is Rise Gold, pays for it. They, the county orders it, and then and I believe they chose the preparer of the
Okay.
DEIR, and Rise Gold will pay for it. And from my understanding is it's in well over $1 million.
That seems right there to be suspect to me. And another thing, I spoke with a friend of mine today, and he has a friend that's on the planning commission for Nevada County. He's not a supervisor, but of
Okay.
course they've had this in front of them. And what Rise Gold and this particular individual on the committee is saying is that Rise Gold is going to pay the mitigation fees up front, and which doesn't make any sense to me. How can you pay fees for things that haven't happened yet? But nonetheless, this is an attempt, I believe, to ease the concerns of particularly people making a decision, ultimately the 5 supervisors. So that is something to consider. What they're doing is they're offering, or they're proposing to pay mitigation fees up front to ease all of our concerns about we're not going to run away and leave a toxic site. We're going to all the mitigation will be covered. And I think what that strategy is, it's a way to get through with a weak EIR. It's a way to ease the concerns of the powers to be, i.e. our 5 supervisors, to don't worry, we're going to take care of everything. We put money up front, which again, I don't see how you can pay for something that hasn't happened yet. How do you know how much it's going to cost? But anyway, that was something that was concerning to me, that this person on the planning commission of Nevada County, who is, I think, in favor of the mine, by the way, is reassuring people he knows that. So that's a strategy to be aware of through Rise Gold. And I thank you for your answer. And anyway, it was just
Josie may want to chime in. I'm certain that there will be certainly discussions about mitigations. You're right. How would you possibly know how much for how long, and especially over the length of time that this is projected to be? But there is always a bond that's with most industrial operations. But my experience in anything that I've read, it's never enough. Or they go bankrupt and it's not paid, that kind of thing.
Right.
So you're right to be concerned. I don't know if Josie has anything to add to that.
That's their track record too. That's
Yeah,
in
that's
Canada.
true. This is not
Mossman's last venture.
It's just an FYI of a strategy that might be running up against. It's not really a question, but anyway, thank you for the meeting.
Sure.
It's really informative. And anyway, take
Good.
the next question.
Thank
please.
you.
Okay. I think Bacon. Who's Bacon?
Well, if you can't see my hand, I have a question. I'm not Bacon, but
Okay. Yeah,
this
Bacon,
is Deb.
your hand up for a while. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, wait, there's somebody there. Okay,
We are Bacon.
Okay.
go ahead. Whoever's waving their hand. I can't read the name.
I just had maybe an idea, just something to put about the mine. I live now in the mine area, and I appreciate all that. And I've been here since 1978 as well, and we've lost a lot of jobs, and a lot of people have moved here from different areas. And I'm interested.
How do we get out? We'll leave.
What's that?
There you go.
Hello?
Bacon, you disappeared?
Oh, sorry about that. There we are.
Are we back?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've lost a lot of jobs in that idea. I'm I'd love to put the water issue onto NID about dewatering people's wells. That's something to think about for sure. And I do know that if you can dewater an area, you're working with the proper water coming out of an area to work with going into a creek, instead of all these other housing plantations going in that are still going through normal sewer systems to Grass Valley's area. Look at all the buildings we're putting in. Look at all the housing we're putting in. There's so much. This is just something to think about for everybody, not
Mhm.
just a mind thing. And I
Yeah.
get it. It might be noisy, and there's definitely going to be more trucking, but we're building all these out right now. What are we going to do in the future when we need the tax dollars coming in to pay for all of us, the roads and everything else? Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti or positive or anything. I'm just interested. And this is just something for people to think about. Look at all the housing developments that are going in. Loma Rica is gone. There's one off of East Main, going out towards Rough and Ready out of Grass Valley. There's one off of Ridge Road going in. All these go through the same sewer plant that we haven't upgraded forever. So one mine repairing water coming out of the ground going into one creek is way more controllable than all these other projects going down through a same sewer system that hasn't been upgraded forever. I know they're working hard on fixing parts of it and doing everything else. Just a question.
Well, the sewer, the wastewater treatment plant is in the middle of, or has just finished a very big upgrade. We work with the city on projects, and I've been aware of that for a while. They started it a couple of years ago. And they do regular upgrades based on the population. Also, the state mandates that we build a certain number of houses and provide housing for the people that we have here, which it's been really underdone. I mean, I'm not happy to see those housing developments go in either. It hurt to see Loma Rica tear up that meadow. It
Yes.
just really hurt.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Well,
Yeah.
I also want to say that I agree with you. I've been very, very concerned, and so has CEA, about the projects, and we do question them. Most of these projects were permitted in about 10 years ago, in the 2008, when
Of
in
course.
that period. And now, because there's money available to build these houses, it's all happening, and it's all happening at once, and it's very, very disturbing. Couldn't agree with you more. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to re-industrialize the area that you live in. I think there are probably other alternatives for the Brunswick area. We've done amazing things in this county all these years. I've been here not as long as you have by any means, but at least 26 years. So,
well, that's nice to hear that other people are also looking at what I was thinking. Here's a weird question on the pro or non-pro side of this mine project. You know, our roads are getting old. What happens if too many people move here and they're not producing the same taxes as taxpayer people to focus on our county's roads and other things that perhaps other people that might be retired don't? Do we not need these jobs, or is that what do you guys think about that?
Excuse me, I'd like to ask that we stay on topic. If we want to have a meeting about building and so forth, then that's great. But the topic is the mine. And number two, I have to leave, but I would like to know, do you need money? And if so, where would you like it sent?
we do need money. We are hiring lots of consultants, and we have a fabulous lawyer as well.
Oh, good.
I think, Josie, do you have I think, again, the mindwatchnc.org. It's
Okay.
all one, it's all one world, mindwatchnc, Nevada County.org, lowercase, no problem. And thank you very much for your comments
And
Thank
that,
you.
yeah, you can,
and your
Yeah.
generosity.
A quick question before we leave. Mine is more the procedure with our government. The Planning Commission sees the DEIR. Do they submit an opinion to the Board of Soups, don't they?
yes.
Yes, you're correct.
Is that somewhat influential from the past? Have you seen, or how does that part work for us? I mean, should we not be submitting some of our concerns to the planning department?
Yes, absolutely. You
Yeah.
should be sending things to both the planning department and the planning commissioners. I think we can probably, again, I haven't got that in front of me, and I think it should be on the mindwatchnc.org or any, the CEA website or Mindwatch website is just wonderful. It has all kinds of tabs where you can find out all of this kind of information, particularly sending letters and sending money.
So would it be to the total department or planning commission, or should we consider sending it to individuals?
Well, if you have your own supervisor, and that supervisor will have their own planning commissioner, you could probably, that might be a good direction. If you want to send it to all 5 of them, I think that's a good
At one
thing
time.
too.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
Then-
Also show
and share it with us.
meeting. It's on the 24th of March. That's the more bodies we have there, if we make a really good show of people that are opposed, it would really make an impression.
So
That's-
at one time you had mentioned it might be on Zoom. Do we know if it might be on Zoom?
We
don't
don't
know.
know any of them yet, do we?
Okay.
Don't know yet.
Be really helpful if it could be on Zoom as well as in person for those of us.
Unfortunately, we are not yes, I would absolutely agree with you, but unfortunately, we are not the people making that decision. It's the county, and we'll certainly suggest that. I'd like to see more and more things on Zoom. I mean, I like to be able to talk to a supervisor, but I also think that for the general public, it's a good thing to have all these things on Zoom.
Well, especially with COVID and those of
Yes.
us. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And up to date, have you by chance heard of any opinions by any of the Board of Soups?
They're not allowed to say.
Okay.
If they do, if they let out how they feel, they're not allowed to vote. So
Okay, got it. I wasn't sure about that. And my last question is there any, I don't know all the ins and outs of legislation and government, but is there any way that instead of them making this incredible decision, that we can try and put it on a community vote, a referendum?
Well,
Yes,
if there was a lawsuit and we lost that lawsuit, if we lose all the way, and if that is from the perspective of wanting no mine, at the end of the process, the governmental process, there can be a referendum, and that is anticipated if need be.
Oh,
Okay.
wonderful. Okay.
But I don't want to do that. I want this to be over.
No, I understand. I mean, and I guess my last question is, can you enlighten us as to why people would want to have this go on in our county? Because I can't figure it out.
Well, you heard from a gentleman who has lived here a long time.
Yes.
Jobs are important.
Yes,
And,
but I've been involved with San Francisco, and they always say they're going to hire people. What happens a lot, when they first start, they hire a lot of people, and before you know it, they're either fired or later. I mean, it just changes.
Or there aren't any jobs, yeah.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's
So-
ridiculous. That's a terrible statement that they make.
But you should probably voice that concern in a, I guess, is not as raising emotional feelings about it, but saying that it's been your experience that the number of jobs that are promised are not the way they end up being the case in
Sure.
various things.
And well, the other question is, so people get jobs, but their families are dying from really bad air and not being able to sleep because of the noise. So what is the value of that?
I know what my answer is.
Right. Yeah. But the person on Mark Johnson's computer has been waiting a
Yes, she's been
long time
wanting to
ask
talk
a
for a long
question,
time.
so let's go to her. Yeah. Go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, though. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Unmute.
Do you know how to unmute on your computer? No? Yes?
We can't hear you.
Oh, Shirley, can you unmute her?
The host could unmute.
I did unmute her. I
Oh.
don't
Yeah,
know.
I think your sound isn't working because we can't hear anything. Is
Oh,
your
she
sound
probably has
turned
to
up?
set- Her volume is probably down.
Oh, it is crossed off. Somebody might be helping, it looks like.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not obvious.
Mark Johnson's computer, maybe. So maybe he knows.
Oh, now I think,
No. Ask to unmute.
I'm going to ask her to suggest that she write to mindconcerns.org.
Or put your question in the chat. How about that? Put your question in the chat and we'll see what we can do. Is Steve still on? Wendy Thompson's Steve?
Oh, Steve, I know Steve.
He was here a minute ago and he had his hand up for a long time and I don't know if he's still here. I don't think he is.
Well, I think we should end the meeting. It's a little past, I don't even know, I lost track of time.
7:20.
7:20. So this has been our longest meeting yet. I want to thank everyone for attending. And a special thanks to Barbara and Josie. You did a great job and you gave us some great knowledge for us to move forward. And I'm sure most of us will go on Mind Watch and kind of keep track of what's happening.
Great.
Quick question, business question. Do you know where the recording is hosted so somebody else could watch who wasn't in the meeting?
We're hoping to post it to YouTube and then send out a link. Do
Very
that.
good. Thank you.
Where will we get the link?
Well, I was gonna send it to the people on our mailing list, but I might need you to, if you want it and you're not on our mailing list, maybe you could put it in the chat.
Or can we give it to
Or-
Mind Watch and they can list it?
Oh, yeah, that could happen.
You can also post it on the BPW Facebook page.
Hello.
I
Yes.
was
Oh,
gonna
good
say
idea.
Facebook
Let's do
page.
that.
Or on our web. Well, we can also
or
put it on
website.
our web.
And you could send it to Mind Watch and that would be, I think it'll be transcribed and that would work for us too. We can, if you give us the link.
If they could hear me, they would respond.
Can you hear
Okay,
her?
I think I can hear
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Go ahead. Everyone quiet and let Mark Johnson's. computer
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Miss
Oh my
Crawford.
God.
What do you know? Thank you, Miss Crawford.
Okay, this is Donna Johnson. And I've been sitting here listening to, this is so good to hear. It sounds like a lot of new people are getting involved in this and you have a lot of questions that I may have some answers to. Very helpful resources that you've already mentioned are the CEA website and the Mind Watch website. If you're on Facebook, Mind Watch has a Facebook page. There are articles on there every day that are very informative. Robert Hubbard, Christy Hubbard is one of the main people in that group. Robert Hubbard did a really good article on decibels somebody was talking about the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Am I talking too fast?
You're
No,
doing
great.
fine. A wealth
I
of
had to make-
information. Thank
I
you.
had to make notes. I had to make notes. Another gentleman said paying for the mitigation up front. It's called a bond. I used to be a general contractor. They put up a bond.
What I said, yeah.
They had a $400 million, $420,000 bond on their project in Canada, and they walked away from $1 million worth of damage. So a bond, they couldn't buy a bond big enough for me to be satisfied. It would have to be $100 million. And so anyway, how they mitigate upfront is a bond. So that's more information. When you write letters to the county, CC everybody. Send it to your supervisor, to all the supervisors, to the planning department, everybody that's going to be involved in this decision. And yes, it could come up for a referendum if it gets, voted on and we want to do a lawsuit, but that's way down the road. We're gaining momentum. I'm watching the numbers grow. It's fabulous. So CC all the bond, Robert Hubbard on the decibels, and MineWatch and CEA's website, and MineWatch on Facebook.
And may we start referring to this as the big mine lie, the big lie. Throw a mine in there, the big lie, throw a
Okay, all
mine
right,
in there,
all
the
right,
big
all
mine.
Oh,
Thanks, Donna. That was great.
I hope
Thank you.
I hope it was helpful. Thank you. I'm glad
yes,
we figured
and,
it out.
and Mark is a big help to all of us as well. So
Right. We're trying.
I know you are. Thank you.
Doing a
Thank
great
you,
job.
everybody.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for all your efforts in trying to get us all educated, and I'm sure we're going to start working tomorrow and trying to get this thing squashed.
Thank you.
Yay,
Thank
great.
you to the business and professional women's group too.
Yes.
Thank
Welcome.
you for having
Yeah,
us.
nice. Good to see you, Shirley.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye all.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Have a good evening. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.